Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I'm Alyssa DeFilippo. I'm the program manager of Connections California at Parents Helping Parents. And you're in the right place for Be Internet Smart, safe internet usage for people with IDD. We're halfway through the spring semester of Connections California, and Connections California is an online resource and information hub for transition to adulthood and adult services. We're a statewide program, so we'd like to reach every family in the state of California who would like assistance and education and more information on all aspects of transition to adulthood for people with all disabilities and also for adult services. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters of the evening. We have with us Darcy McCann, who has over 15 years of experience as a suicide and crisis counselor and has spent countless hours doing crisis work for the County of Santa Clara. Darcy is currently enrolled in a post-bachelor program at Fielding Graduate University to assist her in getting a clinical psychology PhD program. Her ultimate goal is to specialize in working with children, families, and adults who have disabilities. Darcy has cerebral palsy and utilizes a power wheelchair for her mobility. She has served as the VP on the board of the San Andreas Regional Center and is currently a board member of the Santa Clara County Public Authority, serving individuals with disabilities throughout Santa Clara County. And last October, Darcy received the Advocate of the Year Award from the San Andreas Regional Center. So yay, Darcy. Our other presenter of the evening is David Grady. And David is the regional manager of the State Council on Developmental Disabilities Central Coast Office, and he is also a marriage family therapist. David is dedicated to promoting self-determination, independence, productivity, integration, and inclusion for people with developmental disabilities in both their school and community. David collaborates with individuals, families, providers, teachers, and policymakers and the community to accomplish system change and overall quality improvement throughout the developmental and behavioral service systems. David is an expert on building awareness about all aspects of needs and services for people with developmental disabilities, and along with David's knowledge of the systems, his background as an MFT, a marriage family therapist, enables him to understand the complex social, psychological impact disability and behavioral health has on a person, their family, and community. So without further ado, I will end my slideshow and turn over the reins to David.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
I'm going to hit the send button on the chat, and in that you will see a link show up that's to my Google Drive, and on that is both a copy of the English PowerPoint that we'll be using tonight, as well as one in Spanish. So for those who want to follow along using the Spanish version, you can benefit from Beatrice's translation and then have the PowerPoints in Spanish as well. Darcy, how are you tonight? Great to see you as always.
Great to see you as well.
So we are going to get going here. Darcy, do you see the first slide?
Yes.
Great. So everyone, you can see our email addresses if you wish to get a hold of us outside the meeting. Elisa went through the housekeeping. We will go through the slides and have time at the end for Q&A. Darcy, you need to keep me on track. If I drift apart and I'm losing time, you need to bring me back to the meeting. And just quickly, I want to give an overview of what the State Council is. The State Council is not part of the regional center system, nor are we associated with any education, special education, or school district. We are a separate state agency that is dedicated to improving the quality of care for those with developmental needs and their families. We want to improve the developmental service system. And we do this in a variety of ways, including advocacy assistance. Families often call us and ask how to best navigate the services they receive. Training, as we're doing tonight. We're active in systems change and monitoring through working with policymakers and regional center management and administration. And then finally, we do a lot of outreach to the public to have them improve their awareness of developmental disability and the fact that every family system, or most every family system, copes with the disability at one point in their life, and therefore it's important that all our communities are aware of the needs of people with disabilities, particularly intellectual and developmental disability. The State Council has 12 regional offices, and I represent the Central Coast office, and we serve the San Andreas and Tri-Counties catchment. And then there is an actual council that is composed of family members and advocates who meet every 2 months and work on committees and whatnot with their counterparts who are members of the governor's administration. So the State Council is a unique opportunity for families and individuals with disabilities to work directly with our administration's policymakers. Our star tonight, as I've mentioned, and as Elise has mentioned, is Darcy. And Darcy, of course, having cerebral palsy, is one who has lived experience and knows probably better than the rest of us what the experiences are in terms of her use of technology. So throughout tonight's presentation, I'm going to bore you with the details, and I'm going to let Darcy do all the hard work of telling the story of a person with a disability and her encounters and working with and the importance of technology in her life. So, Darcy, that's my first question. It's our Hey Darcy question, which is, hey Darcy, tell us how you use your technology.
Thank you, David. I use my technology every day. Primarily, I am doing a graduate program. It's a 1-year post-bac program for my school. Is all online, so it's all virtual. All my classes are all virtual, and tape lectures and interactions with peers as well.
Amazing. I remember meeting you, what, 10 years ago, Darcy?
At least.
And did you and I ever think that this would be a point in your life where you'd be fully in a master's program, a doctoral program, and able to access the classroom as any other student would? That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
And so you have what do you have? A laptop and a
Yeah,
cell phone?
I have a MacBook Air that I use every day, and cell phone, and technology has really helped me in so many different aspects, not just educationally, but just be a member of society, and it's really helpful to live and do basic interactions with people
Absolutely.
throughout
Yeah.
the world.
Absolutely. So although this is kind of, we want to be somewhat cautionary tonight and make sure that people with developmental disabilities avoid any sort of exploitation when on the internet and when using their technology to do as Darcy does and interact and move forward in her inclusion in the community. We must remember, and this is no news to anybody, the advantages of our technology. It's not unusual that in probably the last 7 to 10 years that I've noticed that our community has cell phones, uses cell phones, has technology, uses technology, are active in the gaming world, are active in all sorts of Facebook and other social media. It is part of life, not only for people, it is part of life for all families throughout the world, including families who have children with developmental disabilities. However, we have to be cautious when using our material. This is just a small list of things traps that one can find themselves in. This reads like my staff training on how not to have a virus enter into the state of California's computer system. We have to be careful about scams and hacking and malware. There's things that our children can get looped into in terms of conspiracies, being too free with their private information. We must worry about trolling, catfishing, and then the opposite side of use of the internet, which is an emerging problem, which is something that's being talked about in Congress these days, how social media can lead to isolation. Of course, too, we need to worry about pornography. Tonight, though, after we're going to go through some of the introductory material, we're going to focus a lot on cyberbullying and a lot on digital overuse. So, Darcy, how did you learn to use the computer? How did you get on the internet? What was your first thing that your first link that you logged into?
Okay. So I learned to get on the computer when I was relatively, I would say pretty young, like, I don't know, 9, 10 years old. And the first thing I did was I did a pen pal service. It was called Prodigy. And I met a whole bunch of people actually with and without disabilities. And it started out locally, and then I met some other friends also in other states that I'm actually sometimes a couple of them I'm still friends with today. So technology has really helped me increase my friendships throughout the world, I would say. No.
Wow. So one of your earliest interactions was to be part of a group, a pet group? Or did you say
Uh,
pet pals?
a pen pal,
Oh,
like
pen pal.
writing back and forth. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Okay. All right. And then have you ever fallen into any of those traps that I listed earlier? How did you learn how to be cautious, or did you
Yeah.
find yourself
So
in a situation where there was trouble?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I did about a year ago. I was um, trying to sell something for my dad, and it became a problem for me. And I never used, it was on Facebook Marketplace. So again, as David said, we really need to educate individuals with disabilities the importance of being really careful. I thought things were kind of fishy and I should have gone with my gut, but I ended up resolving the situation in a timely manner, but it got to be very overwhelming and confusing. So I would say for anybody that gets in a bad situation, talk to a trusted family member or somebody that you feel that you can trust about what's going on.
Yeah. So you were selling something, and the person who emailed you back identified them as interested, and what did they try to scam you or get your personal information, or?
Yeah, both. They tried to scam me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard stories about property that's up for rent, and the person who's advertising the rental property has no ownership of the home, but tries to get a security deposit in place. And there's all sorts of things, traps we can fall into.
Yeah.
And this is,
So
I think, the importance of tonight's training. I think it's why we're here tonight is that the internet poses kind of a dual situation. One, it's extremely beneficial to us, but it can also be somewhat harmful and damaging. And how do we respond to that? And so, of course, we as family members, as family members of children with developmental disabilities, there's going to be a need for vigilance and monitoring on the behalf of the caregiver, and ultimately be on behalf of the family system, the parent, usually the parents. So that is there's no monitoring or safe place that doesn't require our oversight. Now, what we want to do in terms of is this a positive or a negative in our life? We know that Darcy used some important words. She got confused. It became distressing. She had to kind of stop and restart to figure out what was happening. So when the the way to decide if the online activity is positive or negative is it making our lives worse? And what does that mean? Is it making our home life worse? Is it making our work life worse? Is it making our social life worse? That's a quick, easy assessment. Is the link I just pressed, is the reel on Instagram I just spent, the reels that I just scrolled through on Instagram, did that improve my time, make it worse? Do I feel better or feel worse? Kind of do this little assessment. Is it making things better or worse? One of the traps we fall into is we go, well, it's not a problem yet, or I don't think it's bad. When it's a problem, it needs solving. And then be careful as any activity, if we get trapped in it too fully, it becomes a bad habit. And this is, I bring this point up is because in the world, because of the role technology plays for not only people with disabilities, for children in general, our kids, and particularly maybe those with disabilities and those with autism, we might rely too much on technology to help manage that behavior. If I understand the person will really ask to use the app or the game that they play, they might it'll immediately soothe their behavior, and we sense that it helps us make it manage whatever activity we're involved in. But there's also that shadow side to it that can definitely lead to a bad habit forming that could be problematic in the future. So tell us a little bit more about that bad experience. What was did you go on eBay? What was give us a
No,
little.
I was actually a Facebook Marketplace, a common place where people use on Facebook to sell items. So, and someone was quote unquote interested in my stuff, and then it just became a problem.
Did you need to who did you have to call authorities? Did you have to block the information?
I did call the authorities, and they were able to make contact with them, and luckily for me, everything got resolved. I got my 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 money back.
Oh, good. So
But
did you get the
but
police involved?
yes,
Okay,
I
that's
did.
important to know.
I
Yeah,
did do a police report, and it happened actually pretty quickly as far as a quick resolution. So
do you know if the police department had a special department to handle this kind of fraud?
I don't. I think
Do you think it was the police officer just putting two and two together and asserting their authority?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's basically what they said. I was only with them a very short period of time. They realized that
Yeah.
that this was going on. So
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. But I think it demonstrates you kind of have to like I said earlier, don't expect there to be any large organization that's out there to solve your problems. You really had
no,
to rely on the police
you're
officer to kind of put two
yeah.
and two together and send the email that warned the person
eh,
that.
And also just to like for me, it just didn't make sense. So then I was like, this is a further problem that needs to be investigated.
Great. It's not a bad idea, therefore, Darcy. What you're saying is that if you do call your local police department or speak with an officer, ask how they do help when something like this happens, and do they have policies and procedures on how they might assist a family member when having a negative experience, or when a law has been broken, or there's been some fraud or exploitation.
Mhm.
Thank you, Darcy. All right, so we're going to quickly go through the latest acronym. When I was doing the research to create this PowerPoint, of course, there's an acronym for everything in our field, and I came across this SMART, which is this be smart on the internet, actually. But of course, each letter has is related to its affiliate meanings. So let's just quickly go through this. Again, I don't think I'm sharing anything that's earth-shattering, or oh, here's the key, or here's the solution to our problem. But it's good to review it and kind of review each family's policies and procedures on how they work with the internet, and see how they might fine tune their interaction and how they work with their children to make sure the situation is safe. And of course, the first thing is be and focus on safety. I do want to point out that the little dotted square in the middle here is QR code. And for those with smartphones, if you point your camera at the QR code, the link will appear, and you can press on that link, which goes into some of the specifics. So this Be Internet Awesome is a great resource to kind of review what we're talking about on this slide. As family members, this list on the right is just a good set of principles or procedures to go by. When working with an adult, there's an extra level of precaution. If the material they're using is owned by the family or the parent, then you have the right to control their usage of it. However, if it is the child's internet or the child's computer or the child's money that purchased the service, if you want to get parental controls, if the person is over the age of 18, you're going to need to demonstrate that they agreed to it, because it is a right of speech to access the internet. So limiting that on an adult, even if you're a parent, could be problematic. So as you work with your child on internet safety, when they turn 18, make sure that they understand that there may be limits for their own good, and use the parent controls. Boy, when I was putting this slideshow together, I was thinking how complicated it is. I can't manage my own passwords. I can see how difficult it would be to have passwords when it's associated with children. So have a good password planning process, so that if you do have control over, if you do have some monitoring privileges over your child's internet usage, knowing the passwords will be important. You really have to explain to the children about all the areas where their privacy can be given up, such as just regular stuff like their address and phone number, but also social security numbers and credit card numbers. It doesn't hurt to have a policy to double check downloads that your child might have done during their internet time. And then if you need to learn more or get some good advice, Google has if you Google Internet Awesome, that is Google's training tool on internet safety for children. And many of the strategies in the Internet Awesome can be applied to our children with developmental disabilities. Another acronym: zip it, block it, flag it. Don't share personal information, block bullies and trollers, and then instruct your children that if a problem occurs, they need to find somebody they trust, a parent or another trusted caregiver, to discuss the problem with them. Darcy, you went straight to the police. I think that's incredible. I doubt I would have done the same. So I need to adopt some of your values and principles there. That's great. M is for meeting and management. This area, I think, is really important. As your children, every family has to decide when the child is going to be given a cell phone, when the child is going to have an iPad or a laptop or use of the family's computer. I would recommend, before doing that, you create a family agreement. Now notice it says family agreement, which means mom and dad and brothers and sisters have to abide by the same conditions that you place on the child with the disability. And that this kind of brings home the point that maybe some of our internet behaviors are problematic and need a little management as well. But by creating this family agreement, you make it clear to your child what's expected and what they can and can't do. And getting their signature on it will help you monitor their work. So again, I would Google family agreement, internet family agreement. It comes up on your Google search, and then bring this out. And as you introduce any new technology, also introduce the family agreement. I don't think anything here on the right is overly revolutionary, but I do encourage as best possible that the workspace that the child works in is observable by the caregiver or the family member. And then avoid devices being used in the bedroom or basement. And basically what I mean, the bedroom, of course, they've found that internet usage is interfering with sleep time behaviors and sleeping. And basement, this is that kind of that iconic image of somebody downstairs playing video games all day. And we want to, maybe we can correct that by quickly creating an observable space where you can kind of keep an eye on what's happening. And then stranger danger, I can't emphasize that enough. Don't talk, don't chat, don't meet. If you can create good procedures around that, I think that's going to be very helpful. And do it early so a person doesn't fall down a rabbit hole. Darcy, any thoughts here? Again, I don't think it's revolutionary, but I think it's nice to put it all kind of together in a list like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the list is right on. I don't have
Yeah.
anything to add right now.
Accepting,
I
asking
think
and accepting. Yeah. Okay.
I
Go
think
ahead.
the biggest one is, again, one of the last ones. Don't ever give money or say I'm going to give you this or that unless you know them.
Exactly. The money thing, it's that should just be an immediate deal breaker. If anybody asks for money, that should be just be a red flag. And then the sharing photos, this is a very really important to keep cautious about this. There's such exploitation of people showing revealing photos that could lead to all sorts of problems. So definitely a friend wouldn't ask a person for a photo, a stranger would. So you be careful about all that. This acronym THINK, I think, is a helpful way to have your children and ourselves be a little bit more aware of who we're interacting when we're online. But what I like most about this, well, one is to pay attention to what we already know about phishing and malware, right? That's the link that you might get this email that says you need to respond to us immediately, and they might have an artificial logo that looks like something we're familiar with, but you see that the link is not a .org or a .com, but some other kind of strange link. Definitely, we don't want to be pressing on that because that's an invitation for malware. What also I think is important, and it goes both ways for our family members, is to be kind. So there are reports that just as much as our community, our folks with disabilities can be exploited, sometimes they find themselves maybe being a little too aggressive online, maybe use inappropriate language online, or be threatening online. So it's very important that people with disabilities have manners online as they would in public. A parent and in gaming, there is just a whole different way of communicating with gaming that I think is very oftentimes very insultive, and so we need to be careful about that. Share this with your children that sometimes they can break the law if they do threats online. And then really build the trust with your child so that they can come to you immediately if anything should happen. Teach blocking, how to block an intruder who might keep IMing. Check in emotionally. This is really important. Remember, and our country is actually discussing this right now with the ban on TikTok. The reason they're doing that ban on TikTok is because emotionally it's been creating a real sense of isolation, loneliness, and depression among those who overuse it. So double check and make sure the child is, like I said, feeling better after the internet usage and not worse. Look at their behaviors. If you see an increase in aggression or an increase in negative behaviors, double check and make sure it isn't associated with the time online. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm the last one who you should come to set an example as far as internet usage. In that, I too get trapped in reels and scrolling and whatnot. So we as parents need to do so as well. So that is smart, just basic good advice. But when you put it all together and you include it in this family agreement, I think you have the baseline to kind of have good management of your technology needs. Okay. So Darcy, fess up. What trap have you fallen into and how have you gotten out of it?
Okay. What trap have I fallen into? Like I mentioned earlier, just selling something online. Just being truthful for what what happened and taking necessary steps to fix it and to learn from it.
Yeah. Have you ever been approached or kind of an unwarranted solicitation from somebody saying, "Hi, how are you?" or anything like that?
Oh yeah, way back in the day when technology wasn't as good. But
Yeah,
again, don't talk to strangers. That's what I learned.
great. Good stuff. All righty. Now, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A section. I'm going to move on now to go a deeper dive into cyberbullying. This is bullying is a huge problem in the world of developmental disabilities. It's a huge problem for our transition age children in high school and middle school who have disabilities and get bullied. And what we have to do about bullying in real life, we need to do as well online. And the first thing is to know when one is being bullied. And that is stated here in this definition of what bullying is. A couple of things here that I really pay close attention to is the power arrangement. A bully is a bully by asserting power. They use their power to intimidate the other person. And then they don't use that power to help as much as they use it to build their own power by causing harm to the other person. This is not unusual in most of human action, but when you continually do it, when you repeat it over and over on the same group of people over and over, you get repetition going, that's when it becomes bullying. Darcy, you're kind of an expert in this, aren't you, with some of the work you do and some of the warm line talk and 988 talk you do? Any points about bullying you want to bring up?
Yeah. So again, it's really important to recognize the signs, the warning signs. Talk to again a trusted adult, a school counselor, somebody you feel will take you seriously as to what's going on.
Absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit more about speaking with that trusted person, because that sometimes is one of the missing links, or the person didn't go to the trusted person as quickly as we'd like them to. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But this slide is to demonstrate that cyberbullying could be just as bad as bullying in real life. There is this aspect of it not just being an incident on the schoolyard as much as something that could go viral, be made available to entire online communities. People who the bully themselves have issues that they're not working through, and so they might find online bullying easier to do, and so may be a little bit more aggressive in their online than they would do face to face. And then it could be ongoing. It could be just a flood. You know, you get those pings on your phone or emails that just show up over and over, and it can last forever, 24/7, or require the change in your email address or your phone number. And again, what happens within our high school communities when it comes to online behavior is very different than what the online behavior of adults is. And so we may not even know what's going on because it's a trend happening before we even know it. I just read a series of articles about TikTok encouraging children to run around with toy guns and kind of run up and down neighborhoods as if doing criminal activity.
Yeah.
It's kind of a truth or dare sort of thing, and the guns are toy, but nobody knows that, and the harm that could cause is just overwhelming.
Tremendous.
Yeah, and
David, I actually read the same thing, and I was like,
yeah,
wow, this is scary.
it's scary. And in today's world, the margin of error is not wide and could lead to really some terrible incidents. So that all occurred under every adult's noses, and apparently it becomes a thing within a high school setting. So those are things we need to keep an eye out for. And again, oftentimes when speaking with a person at the transition age, a high school kid or a young adult, you ask how things are going. Your answer may be, I don't know, or things are fine, or leave me alone, right? And that is not due to the fact that things are fine or being left alone is preferred. It's maybe due to the fact that the person doesn't know how to engage in an uncomfortable situation. They're embarrassed. They don't have words. They don't even know what they're feeling. So it's on the part of the family to keep an eye out for the nonverbal cues that might demonstrate that bullying is going on or something online needs to be corrected. So might be just a physical malaise that overcomes the person. Their habits may change, particularly around eating. Sleeping can become problematic, and that again is that caution about maybe making sure that bedrooms are technology-free zones. A loss or decline in schoolwork for our children who may be in special education, maybe just an increase in negative behaviors or classroom participation. And then again, I think self-destructive behaviors is something more common among people with disabilities. And then, of course, any self-harm or talk of suicide. So there's a reason for all this. There's behavioral health reasons that are going on. So the first thing is to really pay attention to the power imbalance and how that is stressful and intimidating and somewhat causes the person being bullied to freeze. The remedy for that is to align and empower the person who's being intimidated. Alignment means you as a parent aren't taking over. Well, you may, but alignment actually means you stand shoulder to shoulder with the person and help them assert their authority and reclaim their personhood and power. That reassertion is the empowerment that we're talking about. This is something that parents definitely want to do, especially for our high school age and transition age people, but oftentimes due to the fact that our children are teenagers or growing, from the family of origin to being more independent, you may wish to seek friends, other family members, allies, student allies who can help align with the individual. I think we'll talk more about that, but this alignment idea of helping not assert power through aggression and trying to fight back as much as align shoulder to shoulder with the individual. Oftentimes we're frozen. It hurts us to know that our children have been bullied as much as it may hurt them. And we definitely don't want to make it worse, but we really don't know what to do. So we just kind of hope it goes away. That behavior, be mindful of it, and then immediately counter that behavior by learning how to respond to bullying and then how to be upstanding. Upstanding is a term being used by someone who will defend the individual being bullied through this alignment model that I've talked about. Bullying will not go away on its own. There's a lot of gratification that comes when one person has power over another person. It's reinforcing. So it doesn't go away on its own. Bullying reinforces the bully to do it again. So break the cycle, create a zero tolerance toward bullying. This is common. The teacher will take care of it. The principal will take care of it. The school will take care of it. Unfortunately, oftentimes the teacher, principal, and school thinks it will go away on its own too. So they remain somewhat paralyzed. Also, the school administration needs to protect the school as well as make sure the rights of all students are being acknowledged. There may be a my story against your story kind of attitude. And so the school, again, may be slow to act. Although there's policies and procedures within all schools about bullying, the alignment, the assertion needs to come from the parent or the champion to the person who's being bullied, the upstander. Human beings tend to, when under stress, when under situations that cause that are bullying situations or are power imbalances, the human ego is going to try to minimize it, saying it's not as bad as it is, or blame. They'll blame themselves for the problem or deny. Did they just do that to me? Oh, I don't think so. These are human defense mechanisms that are common. Our children, even though they have disabilities, will use these defense mechanisms. We as family members will use these defense mechanisms. Be mindful of them. Minimizing, blaming, and denying is, in a sense, a blaming of the victim. So keep your radar up and notice if you're sensing that the victim is being hurt more by our behaviors than if they were than just the bully. If we don't communicate effectively and properly, the bully may feel they're given permission to do more, and it could lead to an escalation. So these are all natural human responses to power imbalance. But we have to be, if we don't take action, if we don't become willful in countering the bullying activity, we cannot implement the remedies. And Alyssa, I just want to, do we have an hour or an hour and a half?
We are to have until 7:30. That's what we listed it on.
Okay.
But if you wanted to go a little over, it would be your choice. I just don't know about folks, if they could stay around that long.
Okay. I
There
apologize.
aren't any questions yet, so.
Okay. So just I'll quickly go over some things that our children in school need to be, families in school need to be aware of. Every school must, it's the law, to have an anti-bullying policy and a complaint policy. So every year you get a handbook for students. The bullying policy is in that handbook. The other thing is, again, if you do have a school administration that's slow to act or respond to solve the problem, you can call an IEP meeting and have added to the IEP goals and objectives to counter to face the bullying. You can have a request for a mental, the emotional assessment. Point out that it's the bullying is disability related and therefore can be considered as a discrimination and become a different type of complaint to the federal government. It's a civil rights violation. And if the bullying begins to affect the child's school performance and the child begins to decline in their school performance, it's a violation of FAPE. So if you run into a problem where the administration hasn't solved the problem immediately, the recommendation here is to maybe hold an IEP meeting and get some procedures in place or plans in place to help address it. These would be the goals you write. Get this into your IEP. I want to go back. If a class is offered, enroll in internet safety course. Again, this might be a great idea to add this to the IEP for our children as part of our plan, our family agreement, to help our students learn. A lot of schools already offer internet safety, but if it needs to be added to the IEP, don't hesitate. And again, I'm not going to read the slides, and since we're running a little bit behind, I'll just go through them. But you do have a right to complain to the California Department of Education if the school is not abiding by their bullying policy. If it is discrimination, you can go to the Office of Civil Rights, which is it's different than the California Department of Ed. This is a federally managed, and it's based on discrimination, the fact that the person is being treated differently because of a disability. You can move it up the chain of command, take it to the school board, make it public by doing public comment at a school board meeting. If you so desire, maybe get the media involved, the newspaper. And then try to find names of other families who might be experiencing bullying, and as a group, come up with strategies to affect the bullying that might be predominating on a campus. Darcy, you do a lot of work. You do a lot of 988 work and warm line work. What are the impact of bullying that you've noticed?
So I haven't been on the line for a little while now, but I have some other friends that are, and they're seeing an increase of young people call and reaching out for support and services. So 988 is a really great resource for not just parents, but also educators and people to maybe run through some of the situation by and maybe get a third party person that's not biased as to the situation. That can be really helpful as well.
Right. Yeah, 988 is a new service. It's about a year and a half old.
Mm-hmm.
It is not 911. It's an alternative. It was originally put in place for suicide.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's become a great resource for any behavioral health need. And because young youth bullying and the sense of despair that is associated with it is not unusual. 988 is a great resource to get just a brief little check-in, some referrals, and some management of the anxiety associated with bullying.
And David, one more thing to add, there's also a text line for
Oh,
individuals that feel comfortable texting rather than talking.
great. And that's 988 as well?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'll have to get it. It's a
All right.
separate number, but
Okay.
could be very useful.
I'm sure you could look it up on online.
Yeah.
Okay, so another issue that families face is digital overuse. Digital overuse is something that I think we all have to be cautious about. Not only children with disabilities, our children in general, ourselves in general might be a little, might have some issues with digital overuse. It can be benign, but it could also lead to technology addiction. It can become somewhat compulsive and be very problematic. So why is there digital overuse? And I think it's important to realize that oftentimes we use our phone as a self-regulating task, or our tendency to go on some of the sites that we enjoy or watch TikTok reels or Instagram reels it's somewhat self-soothing. It kind of helps us respond to anxiety. It's a distraction. So there are both healthy and unhealthy distractions. The reason we need distractions is to reduce the anxiety we feel. Now, remember, if we're anxious and if we're triggered, what we tend to do, if we're triggered enough, we'll have an anxiety response. And the 4 F's of an anxiety response is to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So this applies to any situation where we've been triggered and we've had a burst of cortisol and we're feeling anxious. Depends on the severity of that trigger, but let's translate these words: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fight is, of course, being aggressive, or this would include self-harm or harming others or harming property. Flight means running away from the problem, but it also means avoiding the problem or not talking about the problem or not engaging. It's an avoidance technique. Freeze occurs kind of when the trigger is strong or continual, and it's a depression response. And fawn again occurs when the trigger is extreme or the person is in danger because of the anxiety, and they'll just agree with the person in power. So remember, a lot of the use of our internet, the gaming we do, the online time, is a distraction to get us away from anxiety. So the choice we have to make is the distraction we're using healthy or unhealthy. The way we know that is the healthy distraction reduces our anxiety and leads to flow states. So if a person goes online for their creative outlet, or for example, maybe for music lessons or for listening to music or for digital art, and that leads to a flow state, that would be a healthy distraction. An unhealthy distraction has that negative feedback loop where it causes more anxiety. So you're stuck in this loop where it just kind of creates an upward spiral of anxiety. So you can't get off the game, but if you're off the game, you get more stress. So you go back on the game, which leads you to get more stressed out, which gets you off the game, which leads to more stress. You got to break. So you need, one of the key areas here is to identify the activity you're doing on the phone, what level of distraction it is, and is it healthy? And then come up with mechanisms if it's unhealthy to stop it. This list on the right is put together by a group called Free Screen Week. It's just a whole list of non-digital activities that can be used as a distraction as well. So walks in the park, reading a book, baking. I'm just seeing a whole 54. If you're passionate about acting, maybe join an acting group. Find something that isn't digital that can lead to a positive distraction. All right, Darcy, what is your healthy distraction?
I love to read, paint. There's a lot of healthy distractions for me that I love to do. And I also looked up the text line. Can't believe I forgot this. Text line 741 741.
So rather than 988, if you want to use a text, you dial 741. You click in 741. Great. All right. So you read what? I know you're in school. So are you having time to read any fiction lately?
Yeah, right. No, no time. Only writing papers.
Are you able to paint? Are you a painter? You still love art?
Yes, I love painting or for me, I also like going to the movies.
Yeah, movies are a healthy
eh,
distraction.
anything fun.
Yeah.
And I love
And-
to write. I love to write short stories.
Oh, you're a writer too. We'll have to compare our short stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at all these distractions, they're outward, they're sensorial, and they are not and they're based on they're kind of time limited. A movie's time limited. A book has got an end. So those are things that qualify as a healthy distraction. Again, here's a QR code that can give you some good advice on staying finding an alternative to using your computer for you to reduce anxiety. If you notice overuse is having, go back to your family agreement and revise it. Go on a digital diet, come up with some, do an analysis. How many minutes are you on the computer and where can I cut back? Create tech-free zones and times. And find alternate activities. Now, you can see this little graph I came up with. I find it interesting in that this is not a graph for people with disabilities. This is our culture. And there's way too many of us who are overusing. So this includes both, so this information is helpful to those with or without disabilities. It just may require a different level of intervention for those with developmental disabilities. Now, where you need to become concerned and maybe get outside support is when it becomes addictive. So again, if you're sensing that the person is addicted to their digital technology, to their game, to their chatting, to their website, you need to move it toward treatment. Okay, this means don't wait for it to go away. Don't take the computer away and expect it to be okay after that. You got to kind of see why the person might be addicted to the technology that they're dependent on. There may be underlying depression. We talked a little bit about anxiety. Is there a co-occurring substance abuse? Is this a need to escape associated with trauma? Is this behavior associated with the person's developmental need, the developmental issues such as autism and IDD? Again, gaming or use of computer is going to the neurology involved is going to be a little different if you have a developmental disability. And so the treatment that's needed is going to require what's happening is the addiction is related to some difficulty with emotional regulation and some difficulty with executive functioning, which are two problems for those with developmental disabilities. So you might need to get involved with some sort of treatment strategy or therapist who can coach and offer treatment for these two issues. A couple of the techniques that are out there is a technique called motivational interviewing. ABA is to break habits, can be used to break habits. Habit reversal training can also be used. This QR code and this internet site I was researching, they have some good advice. It's a clinic that's in Colorado, but they have an excellent website that gives good information about digital overuse, which I recommend taking a look at if treatment is needed. All right. Well, Darcy, you've already talked about 988, and we're 4 minutes over, so and we're coming up to an end. If your child is having issues of regarding technology and internet safety, you can speak with your regional center service coordinator if you have a case open at regional center. A vendored service from regional center is what's known as California Start Services. And this is a group, this is a vendored service that has a unique way of providing intervention services for behavioral health needs. They do it through, it's person-centered and focused on positive psychology, which utilizes many of the things we've been talking about here today. Darcy, you know a little bit about START, don't you?
Yes, START is a very valuable resource that I would highly recommend individuals and parents or just anybody concerned about a loved one with an intellectual or developmental disability. Great resources, and you can get some great support right away.
Absolutely. START services. Call your service coordinator, mention that you feel your child might have a behavioral health need associated with digital overuse or other issues, and that you would like to talk to somebody about California START services. They are available in a majority of regional center, in a majority of the regional centers, and they, I think, are soon to be made available through all regional centers. So check that out.
David, also getting back to CalSTART, there is a crisis line specifically for individuals with IDD.
Great. Yeah, fantastic. So here's a list of resources to learn more. It's not a bad idea. Again, it's available through that link that I shared earlier on the chat, but it's not a bad idea to take a photograph if you want to. And I think we are done. Elisa, not bad.
Not bad at
8:37
all.
for David
Actually,
Grady and Darcy McCann. I think that's the closest we've ever come to being on time.
the D&D show. Well,
Yes.